I owe you a wrap-up for 2 of last year's videos. So on the one side we have the MAT50 experimental video. That was the Diamond MAT50 magnetic counterpoise. And on the other side we have the video about how I ruined my triple magnet mag mount. So yeah, that's due diligence for last year's video. Let's jump right into it. So last year, October, I got this triple magnet mag mount where I can put on my ham sticks, and I got 3 for 20, 15 and 10 meter to play around. And when I then tried, after experimenting on the bench with the MAT50, here you see it in this messy photo, to put it on here in the middle, I basically disassembled the centerpiece where the coaxial cable is connected and put this lug underneath and reassembled everything. And I made a mistake in the reassembly so that the SWR was completely messed up. Initially, I basically wanted to do a NanoVNA traces without and with the MAT50 to see what does it do, does it make a difference, what does it change, not just speculating with the LCR meter on the bench. And yeah, with this assembly mistake, everything got delayed, but now I finally found time to catch up and finish that. So let's get it out before we start into the new year. So what mistakes did I make? One mistake was pointed out by an OM, and I put the name somewhere here in an overlay. So thanks for the comment. I put the center conductor of the coaxial cable over the washer and not under the washer. So basically the center conductor should be squashed between this plastic piece here and between the washer. So first you have the plastic piece, then the center conductor, then the washer, and then you have this nut on top. And this is how you should apparently properly mount or clamp your coaxial cable down. And the second, which was probably the major mistake, was I did not properly and individually torque down these 2 screws. You remember you have the small screw, which holds basically the coaxial cable and the screw and the nut and the plastic pieces all together. And then you put this cap on top, this plastic cap here. Hang on a second, I'm drawing too many arrows. So this plastic cap here. And finally, you have the long nut, which on the one side gets your antenna, and on the other side is the bottom of this long screw. And I think I just did not properly and individually torque down these 2, and that was my main mistake. My criticism about the mechanical stability of this is still valid, but of course you should also be not an idiot and reassemble it properly. So that was most likely my main mistake, why all my SWR was messed up. So that is fixed now, and I can show you in a moment a before and after picture. Basically, the NanoVNA traces that I got when this thing was virgin out of the box, and then after fixing everything, how the NanoVNA traces look afterwards. And then finally, at the end, we can compare the NanoVNA traces without the MAT50 with the NanoVNA traces with the MAT50. But before we do that, let's have a quick look at the rest, what I did to my mag mount. Okay, and here we are, and I just got the usual cat visitation in the middle of recording a video, because when I'm talking, the cat shows up and also talks to me. Isn't that right? So say hello to my viewers. No. Okay, so as you can see, this is in the middle of reassembly, and I've added the 3 4mm banana sockets that I've already threaded in the previous video. So this is basically to attach counterpoise wires, and it will also allow me now to connect and disconnect the MAT50 magnetic counterpoise quite easily without having to take the mag mount from the roof and moving things around. So we can really do a NanoVNA trace with this thing on the roof. And then we can just plug in the MAT50 and do another NanoVNA trace. And the only thing that should have changed is, in theory, the MAT50. So what did I do here to these 3 magnets? As you can see, I've sanded down the edges of the triangular plate. I also sanded the inside of the metal cup where the magnet is glued in. And this is because I thought it would be nice if the shield of the coaxial cable does not just make contact here to this triangular plate, but if it also makes electrical contact here with the 3 cups where the magnets are in. I don't think in the end it made a huge difference or any improvement or made things worse, but I already had everything apart, so this was just a small modification that I also did. Sand it down here and on the bottom, torque everything together, and then reapply paint to prevent moisture from getting in. And speaking about moisture, let's go back to the previous picture. 1 second. As you can see, the magnet, or the 3 cups here where the magnets are glued in, also has a square cutout, similar as this center plate. And the reason is obvious. The manufacturer also sells single magnet mag mounts, so I guess they just give you one of these things and one of these things plus the coaxial cable, and then you can sell this as a single magnet mag mount. But of course, when you put it here on this triangular plate, you already have the square cutout here, which basically means, square cutout and a round bolt, so this can move around here. You can't really properly center it. It really does not matter so much. It's just me being German and not liking that, so that I printed a small plastic insert, and I think you already know what I'm trying to draw here with the mouse. A small 2 millimeter thick ABS plastic piece like this, with a round hole for the bolt in the middle. And this thing, basically I clipped it in here in all 3 magnets, and then I could screw everything back together, and now it was easier to reassemble, and nothing was wobbling around anymore. Right, so my last criticism about this mag mount is about water resistance. So let's switch back to the other picture again. Okay, so let's assume we are cutting here diagonal through this contraption, and I'm trying to draw a picture how this looks in the side view. So on the one side, well, of course we have the metal cup, and on top we have the triangular plate, right? Then the magnet is glued in here somewhere. Then we have the bolt screw from the bottom poking through the square cutout and through the round hole in the triangular plate. Here we have one of these toothed rings to prevent the nut from becoming undone. So the nut, of course, goes here on top somehow. And then I think there's an additional washer in here. Apart from that, there's a plastic sheet glued in here on the bottom. And the rubber shoe is also attached here. So as you can see, we basically have a nice isolated swimming pool where any moisture that gets in, either traveling down the screw threads or getting in here between the triangular plate and the round cup. And that should be pretty easy because remember, we have the square cutout here. So any moisture that will go down here will probably go in and not come out for a while. So this will probably corrode, So I'm not sure if you have one of these and it's on your roof day and night in rain and snow and any weather, then probably you have corrosion here inside. Furthermore, this glued on plastic here on the bottom of the 3 magnets is really nasty to get off. You have to get it off if you ever want to torque down your magnets again. So as you can see, I mean, it's glued on. And if you loosen the nut at the top and then want to tighten it again, you have no other chance than to take the rubber shoe off and rip off this plastic piece in order to be able to grab the screw head on one side and the nut on the other side. So in the end, I removed these 3 plastic pieces completely, used lots of IPA or some other solvent to get rid of the glue gunk. And then I used some leftover car wrapping foil that I had left over from a kitchen renovations from a few years ago and used that as a replacement for these plastic sheets. Okay, I think this was enough rambling. Everybody got the ideas, the pros and cons and minor design flaws. In the end, it's still built like a tank. So I think any ham that runs into problems can probably disassemble it and fix it and reassemble it. The only bit which is not easy to replace is this specially shaped injection molded plastic piece. If that one breaks, then you have to find a different way of connecting your coaxial cable. Okay, and here we have the NanoVNA traces that I took after the repair. So we have 3 traces after reassembly and 3 traces that I initially took when I first tried to do this MAT50 experimental video. So let's zoom in and have a look at each band. So this is the 20 meter trace. The one in red here is the before picture and the one in black is the after picture. So as you can see, we are slightly worse after reassembly and repair. 2 months later, SWR 121.113, but still well within the green area. So nothing to worry about. I think we can say the repair was successful. Let's look at the other 2 bands now. 15 meter band. Here, the before version is the one in pink and the after version is the one in green. So for the 15 meter band, things have actually improved slightly. We are now down to a ridiculous SWR of 121.027, as far as you can trust my NanoVNA. So a slight improvement there, but pretty damn good already to begin with and still very good afterwards. Now the 10 meter band version. Here I think, let me have a look. The blue one is the before NanoVNA trace and the orange one is the after repair trace. And here we are at an SWR of 121.266, which is also well within the green area. The summary of this quick assessment is repair successful. And now finally we can see what the MAT50 does to this triple magnet mag mount 2 months after I initially tried it. Okay, so here we have the overview again. NanoVNA traces taken with and without MAT50. And actually I took even more traces, but I'm just showing you one of each type to make it not too confusing. So I double checked that the measurement stays the same and I didn't have a fluke in here. So first let's start here with the 10 meter version. So as you can see, the variant without the MAT50 attached is better than the one with the MAT50. I just let you look at it for a few seconds and then I move on because I'm not sure how to interpret it yet. I just wanted to present the results. So here we are at SWR 121.290 with the MAT50 attached. Next band. Here we are at 15 meter. Same result here. Without the MAT50 attached, we are slightly lower on frequency and we also have a slightly better SWR compared to the orange version, which sits at SWR 1.072. Okay, worse is relative here, just relatively worse, right? Okay, and now the interesting bit is the 20 meter one, where things really start making a difference. And as you can see here, touching the MAT50 brought us basically completely out of band. The antenna is now electrically much longer. And in order to bring it on frequency again, I would need to make it shorter, basically. Unscrew the little screw on top of the antenna and push the rod in a little bit, so that I'm in my AmateurRadio band again. But what you can also see is that the SWR improved slightly. So for me, that tells me that we might see an impact for the 40 or 80 meter Ampro sticks. Unfortunately, I don't have any. And for the 20 meter Ampro stick with the triple magnet mag mount, you don't really need the MAT50. So if some of you have a 40 meter Ampro stick or 80 meter one. I would be interested to know if you have any experience what adding the MAT50 does to it. The conclusion for me is I'm happily operating without the MAT50 at the moment. Everything is in the green. I don't need it. Also not such a big surprise because 3 big magnets, I sanded down the metal. I have a good ground connection now. It would have been a surprise if we would have seen stunning improvements there. Nevertheless, the trace for the 20 meter band is interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So suddenly here, adding a little bit of capacitance to ground has very big impact, and it basically shifts the complete resonance of the antenna down. Very interesting. Okay, I don't know what else I should say about this. I was surprised to find that result, and I'm glad that I finally finished that video because it was like a millstone around my neck because I wanted to do it for such a long time and never got around to do it. Okay, thanks for watching, and until next time, please put your comments below, and I would be interested to hear how you interpret this, if this is bleeding obvious and I'm just stupid, which is most likely the case, or yeah, what you make out of these results. Okay, thanks, and until next time, bye!